Welcome back. Well, today was supposed to be, or is, or maybe isn't, the deadline for President Cyril Ramaphosa to give an explanation to the Reserve Bank about why he had US currency on his farm at Phala Phala. You may remember Arthur Fraser revealing that that money had been stolen. Under the regulations of the Reserve Bank, as I understand them, you have to actually declare foreign currency which you receive within a certain period. There's been some reporting from News 24 that the money was part of a deal involving the sale of buffalo to a Sudanese businessman, and that the money was kept under a cushion because it was believed no one would steal from the president. Well, our senior political reporter Ziyanda Ngcobo with us now. Themba Godi, also from the African People's Convention, of course, a former chair of SCOPA. Good afternoon to you both. Ziyanda, if I may just start with you. What's the deadline today? Is the deadline today? Is the president actually going to explain himself today?
Well, according to the letter that we got, Stephen, that was sent to EFF MP Floyd Shivambu, the deadline was meant to be today, but someone in the presidency, source in the presidency says it seems like the Reserve Bank got the date wrong. They're saying that the 15-day extension that the president received is 15 days starting from the 8th of September. So we're yet to also get confirmation from the Reserve Bank if whether or not there indeed was a mistake. According to those in the presidency, the deadline for the president is the 22nd of September. But nevertheless, Stephen, there are questions around why the president is asking for extensions, whether it's to the Reserve Bank's Financial Surveillance Department, or whether it's got to do with, you know, the public protector's questions in her investigation into what happened at his Phala Phala farm.
There was this letter from the Reserve Bank, wasn't there? Isn't it pretty clear in the letter? It says the 8th of September.
It does say the 8th of September, which is why I find it quite odd that there's allegedly, apparently, a mistake on the part of the Reserve Bank when it comes to this 15-day extension. Again, Stephen, you know, there are questions, especially after that report by News 24 about $580,000 that were paid 45 days before the theft at the president's Phala Phala farm. There are questions over when then was the buffalo handed over to the Sudanese businessman. If it was genuinely a sale, then surely that can also be disclosed as to when that was handed over. That's around 8 million rands. Perhaps that explains why the presidency has consistently said that the amount that Arthur Fraser has bandied about is overstated. But again, when it comes to the country's foreign exchange controls, it's highly regulated. It would have had to have been declared within 30 days upon receipts, which the Reserve Bank would have had the receipts of that transaction. So the fact that the Reserve Bank is even asking for evidence from the president to supply the receipts and the papers regarding this transaction is also something that I think is going to be taken up by opposition parties.
Well, Themba Godi, you are from an opposition party, the African People's Convention. You're also a former chair of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts. How do you see this playing out? The president's refused to answer questions from journalists, refused to answer questions in Parliament about this.
Yeah, thanks, Stephen, and thanks to Newzroom Afrika for keeping this matter of immense public interest, you know, alive. The president came to power on the ticket of accountability, of transparency. And it looks like every time he's challenged to demonstrate those principles, he's found short. Remember, Stephen, the robbery happened 2 years ago. So I would imagine that information and evidence related to the robbery and the items that were stolen and their circumstances will be something that the president will only need 2 days, you know, to account for. But it appears, whether it is the public protector and now the Reserve Bank, the president needs extensions for him to explain himself. It can only, you know, strengthen a sense that suggests that the president is trying to cook a story. And maybe he's worried, he doesn't know what else Arthur Fraser has on him, and it's therefore difficult for him to account, or he knows he's guilty, he's buying time, or he doesn't want this to interfere with the end of the year conference of his party.
Mr. Godi, there is also a sense from some analysts that the president continuously requesting, extensions is for him to buy himself time to perhaps cook, audit books. And he's also said that the amount has been overstated. Does this even matter in the bigger scheme of things, whether it was 8 million rands or 60 million rands, when it comes to the foreign exchange controls of this country?
No, very true, very true. And I think that's probably the number of the issues. I mean, your question. Does it matter how much it was? It's the issue, it is the principle, it is the process, it is the legality. But since the president knows that it was not 4 million, how much was it? Or he only knows it was not 4 million, but does not know exactly how much. And once again, this is money that was stolen 2 years ago. What information do you still want to gather after 2 years? I think that if this was a chess game, we would say it's checkmate. I don't think the president knows what he must answer, or else the president is trying to cook and prepare a story which they are testing its legality from time to time. I thought the timelines from the Reserve Bank were quite clear, and as far as I knew, I was expecting that today we will hear that the president has complied, because this is the last day. Now, if there is a new story that does not come even from the Reserve Bank but from the presidency itself, it is meant to create confusion, to create an argument around the deadline. But what is the problem with the information? What is the problem with giving information that he knows is true? So I think Stephen, the president for me is unfortunately proving himself to be not the kind of person that he had projected himself to be, in terms of especially the issues around transparency and accountability. The Phala issue, about which the APC will be joining other parties tomorrow in picket at the public protector, seem to be his Isandra. I think that's where he's going to fall on his proverbial sword. I don't see him getting out of this unless state organs are not going to do their work. They are going to do his bidding, which hopefully with a media whose eyes are wide open, it is not going to happen.
There are so many other issues around this as well, because the president says, and when he spoke about it in the early days of the scandal's gone on long enough that it now has early days, Mr. Godi, but he spoke at the Limpopo ANC conference and said very clearly that he had not stolen money. And I don't know if he was trying to differentiate himself between himself and those accused of state capture, but he says he hasn't stolen money. In the end, there are probably a couple of issues here. The one is that what we try to do normally as a society is judge people by their own words and their own actions. And this maybe takes us back to the original point you were making. It's about what the president said he was going to do, renewal, to use the ANC phrase, reform, to use the phrase most people would use, and then this.
Yeah, no, look, Stephen, I think what the president said, including what Advocate Madonsela said around this is not corruption, I think it's a deliberate diversion. No one accused the president of having stolen money. No one. Actually, he's a victim of crime in this instance. But the question is, what was stolen at his place? Money. How much was it? Why does he keep money under the mattress? I mean, even my late mother used to get a social grant from the bank. How do you, as a president of the country, keep money under the mattress? I mean, why is it that when you are a victim of crime, you don't report it to the police? And all the other bits and pieces that have come out, like you send people to Namibia, you used police resources without a proper procedure or without a crime. So there are so many things. The exchange control issues are just but one part of the issues. There are so many issues around this matter that has not gone right, that the president is failing to take the nation into his confidence. and explain it. And I would imagine, Stephen, that if I was in his position, I would actually use the opportunity of the questions in Parliament or the call by the public protector to lay the matter to rest as quickly as possible so as to focus on the job at hand of leading the country. And yet he seemed to be dilly-dallying and taking his time. And look at the acting public protector. In terms of the law, she was supposed to have reported in 30 days. It's now what? More than 80 days or thereabout, no report. So you get a sense that there is something that is being hidden. There is something very wrong about what had happened at Palapala, that the president and those around him are wary, are scared, to come out and say, look, this is what has happened, because it will mean the political end for the president and those around him.
You are quite right that there are many angles to this. I mean, there's also the allegations of torture and the bribery thereafter. But, if we're to keep in line with what you've already suggested, Mr. Godi, about there perhaps being a story that's now being cooked up, could we see, for instance, the farm manager, fall on his sword as a way to protect the president, as some may have be suggesting?
Well, there have been so many reports around this matter. There was one report where the farm manager said he had not been told that there was ever a robbery. He only heard it once the scandal broke out. So if that is true, then you rule him out. I also thought his chief of security, Ruth, was the one who was going to fall on his sword. If media reports are anything to go by, it looks like he might not be the fall guy. So I think that actually might be what complicates the president's situation, because he might have run out of fall guys and everything points out to him, because he has to take responsibility. If his chief of security and this Mr. Chauke are alleged to have gone to Namibia to engage, negotiate, people were arrested, tortured, and all that kind of stuff. It can't just be that I was not aware, I did not know. My subordinates are the ones who are supposed to, to answer for all of this. So I think the president is caught with his proverbial pants down, and all these
On that note, I think it's probably the place to leave it. Thank you very much indeed. Themba Godi is the president of the African People's Convention, former chair of the Standing Committee of Public Accounts in Parliament. Ziyanda Ngcobo, our senior political reporter, working her sources, of course, to find the latest on that. Any developments from the presidency, from the Reserve Bank, or from Phala Phala itself, we'll bring them to you.